What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to fetch data from a MySQL relational database and display that to the user using PHP. For this tutorial, I'll be using PHP Storm as my favorite editor, and I'll also be using WAMP Server as my favorite host. You're free to choose any other editor. You can use Sublime Text. You can use Notepad++. You can use Dreamweaver. But for this tutorial, I'll be using PHP Storm. Let's get down to business. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my local server is up and running. So I'm going to search for WAMP, and then I'm going to click on Start WAMP Server 64-bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to Google Chrome and then click on localhost. Now, as you can see, the PHP information has been displayed. I'm using PHP 5.5.12, meaning that my local server has been installed successfully. I'm going to go ahead and go to PHP MyAdmin is a very powerful tool for managing MySQL relational databases. So I'm going to click on that. And then what I want in this tutorial, I want us to search, click on a button, get the records in that particular table or in that particular database, and then display those records to the user. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new database, and that database I'm gonna call it dev languages, and then yeah, I'm gonna name it dev languages, and then I'm gonna click on create to create a new database. Now, as you can see, my database dev languages has been successfully created. I'm going to go ahead and go to the newly created dev languages database, and then I'm going to add a table. Now, the table is going to contain at least three columns. Now, the first column is going to be the unique identifier for that table. The second column is going to be the development language name, and then the third name is that column, sorry, is going to be the development language description. So I'm going to name this table languages, and then it's going to have three columns, as I said, and then I'm going to click on go. And then the first column is going to be ID, is going to be of type integer, and then the second column is going to be language name, is going to be a variable character of at least 100 characters, and then that column is going to be the language description, which is going to be of at least a variable character of at least say 300, 300 characters. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on save to create my new table. Now the table has been successfully created, as you can see. If you click on structure, you can see that the table has three columns. That's the ID, the language name, and the language description. But the table does not have a unique primary key, so we cannot fetch unique data from the table. So to do that, we're going to make the ID column primary key so that no data can repeat itself. So do you really want to execute alter table languages, add primary key into bracket ID? Of course, that's what we want to do. We want to add a primary key to that particular table, and that primary key is going to be the ID column. So I'm going to click on OK. So if you click on structure again, you can see that the ID column has been underlined. That means that it has been successfully modified as the primary key. So I'm going to go ahead and insert data into that table that we just created. Now, before that, we want to modify, the ID column so that it is auto increment. We don't have to really input or to know the next ID that we want to enter as the data. So I'm gonna run a very fast simple query. So alter table languages, add modify id int not null auto increment, and then I'm gonna click on go. So as you can see, the query is successful, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert data into that table that we just created. So the language name that you're going to start with is PHP, and then the description of PHP, we're gonna Google that very first. And as always, as you know, Google has most answers to most problems, to most problems. Um, you know, uh, girlfriend, boyfriend problems. Relationship problems, domestic violence, calculus problems, all those problems. So I'm gonna go ahead quickly and Google what is JavaScript. What is JavaScript? So JavaScript is an object oriented. I'm gonna copy that and then paste it as the description of JavaScript and then click on go. So if you click on browse, you can see that our data has been successfully inserted, and we're going to insert more languages. The next one is Ajax. What is Ajax? Uh, so I'm gonna just go ahead and copy all that quickly and then insert Ajax here as the other language, and then we looked at PHP. Then I'm gonna look at what is HTML5. So I'll Google that quickly, copy, get the description. The language name is HTML5, and that is description. If you browse, you can see that we have 4 development languages. We're going to work with those for now. Now, we're going to go and jump quickly to local disk C, and then to WAMP, which contains then to W sorry to WAMP, then www, which contains our projects. Now I'm going to create a new directory that is going to contain my new project. This directory, I'm going to call it web tutorials. I'm going to use the one that I already created. So quickly, I'm going to create a new file, a new PHP file, and I'm going to call it index. And this index PHP file is going to be, this will be the default home page loaded first, and then um, I'm going to create a new directory that I'm going to call CSS. Remember that you can create that directory very easily. If you go to your folder that has your project, you just create a new folder and you call that CSS. Then I'm going to create a new folder and call that JavaScript. Now the JavaScript folder is going to contain a JavaScript file. The CSS folder is going to contain our CSS file. Now to create a new CSS file, I'm going to right click on the folder that we just created and then create a new file. I'm going to call that style.css, um, and then um, I'm going to create a new JavaScript file, which I don't really need to code because we'll be using what jQuery already has provided in their official website. So you're going to have to go to the jQuery, the JavaScript website, and then download the JavaScript file, which you'll name whatever you want and then include it in your project. So I've already downloaded the JavaScript file. So I'll go right ahead to my other project and copy the JavaScript file quickly, and then I'm going to go back to my project folder, the JavaScript folder, and then paste that file. and then as you can see, the CSS folder has the file that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and link these files to my main file, that is the home page. Now the home page is a PHP file, but you can still start the tags with HTML, which is what you're going to do. So we're going to say HTML has type, HTML, then title. Title is going to contain, the name of our project, and in this case, we're going to call it Web Tutorials softKE, and then uh, after title we have head. Head here is where we link major files. Uh, this is where we link our home to our style and our script. Okay, so now to link that, we'll start with the CSS. So to link, we say link relation equals style sheet, type is text or CSS, then href. Where do we find that file? It is in the CSS folder, and then the file itself is called style.css. Now that is for the CSS part. Now to link for the JavaScript, we say script, because we start with the script tag. We say that script src. That is where do we locate the script? It's in the JavaScript folder, and then what's the name of that file? It's default.js. Remember that this file, uh, you have to download it from the jQuery official website, and you have to rename that to whatever you want. In this case I've called my def.js, which is short form for default.js. Now we've successfully linked JavaScript and CSS. Now we need to go ahead and complete the body tag. Now the body tag, this is where um, uh, we have our button for fetching the records, and this also where we will be displaying the records that you fetch from the database. So quickly I'm going to go to the CSS file that we created, that is for styling our page, and then I'll say the body tag. How do I want the body to appear? I don't want any margins on the left or the right or the top, so I'll say margin 0. Okay, and then I'll create a div, and that div I'll give it an ID of div ID equals btn fetch container, and then I'm also going to have another div ID equals record display container. Okay, so now this btn fetch container is going to hold our button. So I'm gonna say that this div will hold button for running fetch records query. So I'll go ahead and create the button. Then the value for the button, we want to say it's fetch. Yes, fetch the records, and then this div will hold the records in the database. Okay, so we want, when we click on this button, we want something to happen when we click on this button. So a quick we're going to go to our CSS to style this division and say that hash that division, we want it to have a height of 40 pixels, and we want it to have a width of 100 percent, and then a background of say light gray or something. We could increase the height to 50 pixels, and if you go to localhost, you'll see as you'll see your project that you've created in your WAMP folder. And in this case, the project that we are dealing with is web tutorials. So I'm going to click on web tutorials. As you can see, we have our newly created div that has a background of light gray, and we have a button that that will trigger the fetching records from the database. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this particular button is centered, is centered so that it looks more appealing. So this is just a simple tutorial. We're not going to be styling. Uh, we're not going to be diving into complex styling. So I'm going to say button style equals margin left. Let me give it 40%, and then margin top. Uh, we can say uh, 10 pixels, yeah, so that the button appears almost is almost centered. And then we're going to increase the height, the width of the button so that it's more visible. So I'm gonna say the container, the button fetch container. Uh, then any button that is within that container, I want it to have a height of say, say 50 pixels and a width of 100 or 150 pixels. Then if I reload, you can see our button is so large, and then I can say that border radius, sorry, it's not border radius, border green solid, uh, say gold, or blue. And then we can say that we want our button to have a cursor, or that is a there is a hand or a pointer indicating like a link. So now the only thing that is left is to when I click on this button, or when the user clicks on that button, fetch the records and display them on the uh, user interface. Now for this tutorial, will be getting a little more complex, because you're going to be using Ajax, and you're going to be using Ajax to communicate with PHP, get the records from the database, and then display those records without even reloading the page. So this is what we'll be doing. Before that, we need to style the records display container and say that uh, we want you to have um, a height of 500 pixels, or a width of 100%. Yes, yeah, that's all. We don't. Okay, we could use a little bit of background color and say that we want the background color to be light sea green, light sea green. Yes. So now all the records that we'll be fetching will be displayed on this particular division. So now let's go back to our index.php file, and we say that when you click on when the user clicks on this button, on click we want to call this function called fetch languages. So I'm gonna create a simple script here. This script will contain our function. So I'm gonna say function fetch languages. So this function will trigger fetch records and trigger fetch records. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of Ajax here. So to use Ajax, we have to use that you have to use that dollar sign and then say Ajax uh, with those two closing and opening brackets. And then we want to say that the type of the code that you want to make is a post type, and then the URL that is the executor of that uh, that process or that work is fetch master.php file, which we've not yet created, but we're going to create. And then we're going to say that the data uh, is just so simple. The data is so simple. We're going to add something between the parentheses, and then the if you've successfully communicated to that file, we want you to do something. So we want you to display here is where we show the record to the user. So the data could be just something simple, but which we don't really need in this case, but we could use it if you want. You can extend the functionality of these uh, you know web series tutorials. So we can say that the data that you want to post, or you want to post to that file is you know uh, care, and then um, blah blah blah. We could just have a simple string like a scale. This is not really important in this series. So I'm going to go ahead and create our fetch master.php file, and I'm also going to create a new file, a new PHP file that will help us connect to our database. Now I'm going to start first by editing the connection file. I'm going to define several variables. To define a variable in PHP, you have to use the dollar sign. Um, I'm going to define several variables. The server name that we currently using is localhost. Uh, the username that we're using currently is root. The database that you want to connect to, and then the password that you want to connect using. The password is blank, and then the database, as you remember, we created a database, and our database we called it dev underscore languages. So in this case, we're going to use the dev underscore languages database, and then I'm going to create a new variable and call it con, and then I'm going to instantiate that to equals new mysql. So in this case, we are trying to connect to mysql database. So in the new mysql, we're going to have uh, several parameters, and the first one that we'll want to use, um, sorry for that, my SQLi, the first parameter they're going to use is the host name. The host name that we want to connect to, which is localhost, and which we have assigned the variable server name. So we're going to say server name, and then the username that you want to use is username, which is a root username, and then the password is that, and then the database that we want to connect to is that variable that you've defined. So we've already created a new object that's going to connect to our MySQL database. Now, the fetch master must operate using the connection.php file. We must connect to the database in order to get whatever is in there. So I'm going to open the PHP tags, and then I'll include the connection.php file, and then um, now we've successfully connected to the database because we've included the connection.php file. Now the only remaining thing is to run query to get our data in our DB. Now I'm going to define a new variable here and say this variable is query equals select all from the table that contains our data. In this case, it is table languages. So, and then I'm going to say that result equals, use the object that we created, if you remember. Use the object that we created, if you remember. And the object that I'm referring to is the con object, which we say that con is equals to new mysql, whatever, blah blah blah. So now the next big thing is to, if uh, if there are records, then do something about it. If the result number of rows, that is numbers, is greater than or equals to 1, this means there are records. So if they are greater than or equal to 1, then obviously, because there are a number of records, we need to loop. We need to loop. We need to loop through the records, so that while row, which is the new variable I'm creating right now, equals result, then fetch array, that is fetch everything that is in there. So we want to just echo, or rather, you can try to style the uh, the records, or just display them as they are in database. So for starters, we're going to display, but in our more advanced and subsequent tutorials, we're going to try to style the records so that they appear appealing to the user. So remember, in PHP you can write inline HTML. um, so I'm going to do this, and then this means this tag close PHP, close PHP, continue PHP. Let me just use pause for the purposes of convenience. Now I'm going to create, okay, so before that, um, we need to create several variables for uh, for holding the data that is in that table. So I'm going to say language lang name equals the row, that's an array, then we're referencing a certain column, and the column that we want to reference is the language name. So we're going to say language name, and then lang description is still in that array. We want to reference this particular column of language description. So I'm going to go ahead and type language description. Now we have, if the data is in there, if the data is in there, then loop through the data and then assign these variables to each of this data. Now we need to display those, each of that data to the user. Now, for simplicity, before anything, we're going to just echo the language name, then put some space, and then the language description. So hopefully everything is okay. Now we need to show that data to the user, and to do that, if it was successful, the query, and everything, and calling that PHP file, um, we need now just to show that data. And to do that, we can simply just say that document dot get element by id, and then dot inner, or rather dot html in html equals, so you get element by id, um, the container for the records, you know and then it is equals to result, whatever was returned by the PHP file. So hopefully everything is running okay. If we load this and then we fetch, um, you can see that our function has actually returned the languages and their description. But the only problem is that the data is not properly formatted, and to do that, we're going to append some information to the PHP master and say, uh, so break after every loop, break after every loop. So if we click on fetch, you can see at least there's a break. We need to add another break. So if we click on fetch, you can see that PHP will break, Ajax will break, and then the HTML5. Um, so that's the basic tutorial of how to use Ajax, PHP, mysql, CSS, and HTML5 to get data from the database without actually reloading the page and displaying that to the user. So the next tutorial will be styling and designing, so that it's actually more appealing to the user, and hopefully you learn something from it, because there are plenty of situations where you need to fetch data and actually not reload the page. So see you in our next series. Bye bye.